Hi there, it's Kevin with Rogue Deck Builder here with a special edition of the Rogues Alley. So Tuesdays, I'm going to still plan on doing the Rogue Tuesday Brews Day, which I'm going to take like a standard, typically it'll be standard, maybe we'll try Modern, maybe we'll try Pioneer in the future, of just a deck that I'm playing like on Arena or more casually or kind of a card I'm messing around with. Rogues Alley, I'm going to revive and I'm going to try to focus on user requests. So this is actually coming from a patron. A patron actually sponsored what we do. We do something called the Bucko's House of Booty, where we do auctions. We did a special Bucko's House of Booty where we auctioned off a commander deck that I would brew and do a video on. So shout out to Bacon Bombs for stepping up to the plate. He actually paid 500 buckaroos. I think those are very similar to United States dollars. So 500 buckaroos to build an Atraxa deck. Not the most... this is a very popular commander, Atraxa, but wanted to go a Saga focus with Atraxa. So admittedly, this deck is hyper-focused on making the Sagas work. There are probably a lot of cards that should go in Atraxa that I did not put in Atraxa. Man, it is very, very tough in today's day and age to narrow down to 100 cards for Atraxa, especially when you need a bunch of ramps still to make this card work. So, admittedly, this isn't going to be the most powerful Atraxa deck. The focus is going to be on making the Sagas just really cycle through and getting the most bang for your buck out of the Sagas. So Atraxa says, Flying Vigilance, Death Touch, Lifelink in the beginning of your end step, proliferate. So at the beginning of end step, you proliferate. So it's going to put another counter on all your Sagas, and hopefully you can proliferate a couple of times to actually go through your cycle with Atraxa. So anyway, let's go ahead and get to the deck list. So first off, there is going to be the all the Sagas. So we're going to run a ton of Sagas here. So again, this is going to take a huge bulk of the deck. Binding the Old Gods is really good because it destroys non-land permanent. And then you search your library for forest, put it into play, and then creatures control Death Touch. The third isn't that important, has very little synergy in this deck, but it's going to be destroying and ramping every time this goes off. We have a Fall of the Imposter, which puts +1 counter on one target creature. Good way to start proliferating. And then the 3 will be Exile Creature with the greatest power among opponents, what opponents have. Then he's sent with the Worthy. This one's kind of cool because it choose a creature you control. All damage dealt to it would be dealt to that creature instead. If you have a big creature, you can do it there. But the 3 is really you return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It becomes an Angel Warrior in addition to its type. So this is going to be important because one of our Sagas we're going to tutor for very early is going to be wiping the board. And so you're going to allow your Atraxa to go to the graveyard. And then the Scent of the Worthy is going to be a way to get Atraxa back and to start repopulating your field. We have the King Nefari's Betrayal. Each player mills 4 cards. Then you may exile a creature or planeswalker card from among those. Until end of turn, you may cast spells from them with King Narfi's Betrayal. So we don't have a lot of win cons in our deck. We're hopefully going to find many cards out of our opponents with King Narfi's Betrayal. Vajara's Retribution. This is kind of cool because Atraxa is an angel. You're going to create a 4/4 angel, and then until end of turns, Angel's creatures have tapped to destroy target creature power less than them, so Atraxa actually gets some value there. And then Angels get Double Strike, which is actually can be a win con with Atraxa. We have the Binding of the Titans. Each player puts top 3 cards of the library in the graveyard, exile 2 cards from graveyards. For each creature exiled, 2 target cards from graveyards. Okay, for each creature card this way, exile to gain 1 life, and then return target creature or land from a graveyard to your hand. So it's another way to start, cycling through and finding what you need. The Battle for Breton Guard, you create a human and an elf, and then choose any number of artifact or creature tokens, and you double them. So it's a nice way to get your army going. Elsa's Nightmare, destroy creature's power 2 or less. Target opponent reveals their hand. You get something in the exile opponent's graveyards. So that's pretty good. It's a good way to graveyard is used a lot in Commander, so it's a great way to control your opponents. The Bears of Lich-Jar is going to create a shapeshifter, which is an angel, by the way. And then 2 is not that you're going to be using that much. And then the number 3 is choose up to 1 target creature or planeswalker. Each creature with power 4 or greater you control deals damage. So again, it's another way to get some lifelink off of. Atraxa is going to be a big control with a lot of your Sagas. The first Iron Games, which allows you to draw. This is kind of a draw outlet. Put counters, create a token. You can see what we're kind of going with his deck. Create a gold token. Timrit, Calls the Dead. This is good because you do want to mill because we are a graveyard recursion deck. I'll show that later. And it's another way to create some tokens. So here's the good one. For Executing Scriptures, the number 2 is going to destroy all non-artifact creatures. And exile all cards from opponents' graveyards, and then it puts +1/+1 counters on. This one's kind of cool for Executing Scriptures because it makes Atraxa into an artifact, and then it doesn't actually kill Atraxa. So a nice little synergy there. So the Antiquities War, this one I was a little bit iffy on to play because it is going to. We're not running the greatest amount of artifacts in this deck, but it is a saga. Look at the top 5 cards of the library. You may reveal an artifact card and put it in your hand. So it's going to miss a lot with Antiquities War. Again, this is the one that I was last to add. I'm not sure if I actually want it. The 3 isn't that great too, but it does dig for some. There are some artifacts in this deck that are quite important. Elspeth Conquers Death. So this is one of our better sagas. So exile is a permanent with converted mana cost 3 or greater, and then makes your opponent's non-creature spells cost 2 more, and then you get to return a card back from your graveyard to the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. Then Elspeth Reborn makes opponents sacrifice creatures and planeswalkers, discard cards, and then again put a planeswalker card back on the battlefield. So we're using our opponent's. There's a lot of non-bows with exile and graveyards and whatnot, but Elspeth Reborn we can actually utilize our own graveyard. Excuse me. Then we have the Mirage Conjecture, which is return an instant or sorcery card. Return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. That's going to be super important. And then return a sorcery card. So instant sorcery card, and then until end of turn, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you can copy it. There are some cool things to do with the Mirage Conjecture. And then Cure Best of Sea God creates an 8/8 Kraken. Tap all your opponent's stuff down, and then gain control of something. So our sagas are going to be. Our doubling down is our finishers and our kind of control aspects. We're not going to be running the traditional control cards that you usually see in Commander. Speaking of like honorary sagas, we have the Clever Impersonator that can copy one. We have a Mirror Maid that can copy one, and we have an Escher's Invocation that can copy one, and then it also can kind of flicker. So really good card there with it. Now, this is the super, super important thing with our deck is we are going to have all the ways to recur all of the cards back from our graveyard. So all our sagas have gone back in the graveyard. We have things like Dance of the Manse that's going to work. We have Face Reward. Return all to battlefield all permanent cards in your graveyard that were put there. This turn, we have Eerie Ultimatum that targets basically any card in your graveyard because they have different names, puts it back on the battlefield. Triumphant Reckoning, once we up to 9 mana, return all artifact, enchantment, planeswalker cards back from your graveyard to the battlefield. Cleansing Meditation, this one's cool because you have Threshold. You destroy all enchantments, then return them all of yours that were destroyed back onto the battlefield, so you get all those triggers again. And then we have Replenish, which is the best card in the deck. Return all enchantment cards from your graveyard to play for 4 mana. So this is a bulk. This is a $100 card right here. Reserve list card. Super, super good for this deck. And then we have Yorion, which is just going to flicker everything. So you get a lot of value off of Yorion for flickering everything. All right, on to the next ones, which are going to be kind of the flicker targets here. So Ghostly Flicker. Exile 2 target artifacts, creatures, or lands, and return them back to the battlefield. So you can't flicker your sagas, but you can flicker these 2 very important cards. One being Scholar of the Ages, which returns 2 instant or sorcery cards. You get back all those big recursion things. And then we have Eternal Witness that can get back anything from the graveyard. So I think those 2 are pretty important. Next up, we have the classification of these are going to be the proliferate or doubling counters or whatnot. So we have Pure Imaginative Rascal, which basically just creates 2 tokens or 2 counters instead of 1. We have the Contagion Engine, which proliferates and proliferate again. We have Power Conduit, which allows you to remove a counter from permanent so you can actually reset a saga and then hit it again. Then we have Vorniclex, which puts 2 and then your opponents get halved. We have the Evolutionary Stage, which proliferates whenever land comes into play. We have Doubling Season, which doubles your tokens and your counters. So both these are pretty good. And then we have Inexorable Tide, proliferates every time you cast a spell. Flux Chandler, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, they proliferate. And we have Toothy Imaginary Friend, which actually this is in the wrong category. This is in our draw spells. We're running this basically because Peer. It just works with Peer. And then when it dies, it's going to die a lot from your own board wipes. And you're going to actually be able to draw some cards. So pretty good card there. Now speaking of card draw / tutors, we are going to run a lot of tutors in here with Enlightened Tutor, which searches for enchantment, puts it on top. Idyllic Tutor, searches it and puts it in your hand. Moonblast Cleric puts an enchantment on top of your library. Search for Glory gets a saga or a legendary card or a planeswalker. So a legendary card is a planeswalker. So yeah, you can go get a planeswalker or a legendary. Sterling Grove, which have all your enchantments get Shroud, plus you can actually tutor by sacrificing it. And then as far as card draw, we have the Citizen Champion and the Eidolon of Blossoms. I chose these 2 because they're the most powerful of their type, because it says when they enter the battlefield. A lot of the other ones are when you cast an enchantment, so it doesn't work with all the recursion. These both work when it enters the battlefield. You're going to be drawing cards off Eidolon Blossoms and Citizen Champion. Next up is our Planeswalkers. You can't build Planeswalker or Atraxa without at least some Planeswalker. I decided not to go heavy on them. We're just going to run 3 of them. First, going to be Estrid the Mask, which it says put the top 7 cards of your library into your graveyard, return all non-Aura enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, then do the same. So this is a really cool way of recurring things back. It also has this totem armor that you can put on Atraxa, which is pretty good. The +2 is actually pretty weak, though. We need to proliferate this guy as quick as possible to do the -7. Then we have Calyx Destiny's Hand, which allows you to -7 return all enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, which is super important with this deck. It also does have... we have exile target creature enchantment you don't control until target enchantment you control leaves the battlefield. You can actually throw some stuff underneath an enchantment for a while. And then it also helps you dig for enchantment cards. Then we have Aminatu the Fate Shifter, which again, exile target permanent you own, then return to the battlefield in your control. So you just flicker a Saga, basically, is what you do. So it's super, super strong with the -1 by flickering. Next up categories, we're going to have Ramp. So we have the Empowered Auto Generator. This one's kind of cool because it puts charge counters, and then you add mana equal to the charge counters. So once this starts getting going, it's going to add a lot of mana. We have an Arcane Signet, a Failware Stone, Pendant Prism. Same thing, puts counters, and it's really going to proliferate strategy. A Soul Ring, an Astral Cornucopia, again, charge counters, proliferate. Pyramid of the Pantheon, charge counters, proliferate. Replicating Ring, kind of cool. You can start proliferating this and getting a ton of mana. And just Chromatic Lantern, because we do need to fix. One of the things we did not add in this deck was any... there is no mana base, because Bacon Bob says he has all the fetch shocks and all the mana base. So I did not add any of those. We are going to be running some Ramp here, and I chose this package for Ramp. You could of course customize it with the Cultivate and Kodama's Reach, because you want these to come out pretty early. So these are going to get 2 basic lands, 1 in battlefield, 1 in your hand. Then we have Farseek, which goes and gets a non-forest. Rampant Growth, which goes and gets basic land. And then we have these neat little enchantments too, the Omen of the Hunt, Font of Fertility, and Colony Heart Expedition, because these are things that can recur. So once they go to the graveyard, they're going to come back with some of your instant sorceries. Last up is the utility land. So these ones are kind of fun. The Tyrian Sanctum I decided to put in here because it's a great way to give Indestructible, which is kind of important for Atraxa to survive board wipes. So you can turn Atraxa into a god, and then it gets Indestructible. We have the Nesting Grounds. You move a counter from one target permanent you control to another target permanent. So another way to get the sagas going or reset a saga. Wow, we have 2 Sanctums here. We need to get rid of... This is supposed to be something else. I'll figure out what that's supposed to be. Then we have a Karn's Bastion, which just has the Proliferate. And the rest of them we're just going to run... since Bacon Bobs has... Well, I'm running basic lands. So I'm going to actually run this in Commander Night and actually see how it plays. And I'll give you maybe an update on the comment section of how well it played. But we're just going to run basic lands here. I think I'm running 35 lands in this deck. Plenty of ramp, plenty of ways to recur. Pretty fun little deck. Of course, there are many more busted ways to run Atraxa. This is more of a casual kind of saga type brew that I think should be pretty fun to run for Commander Night. So let me know in the comment section what you thought about this, or if I'm missing any cards. There was like an Open the Vaults that was supposed to be in here, but I just didn't have a copy of one in the store. That's a card that I definitely put in. There are definitely some other Planeswalkers that would go really great in this, like Venser or Teferi. But, everyone builds Atraxa with Planeswalker. It's kind of boring at that point. And I hope you enjoyed this video. This has been Kevin with the Rogue Deck Builder for the Rogue's Alley. Again, if you have a suggestion for a card that you'd like me to brew around in whatever format, you can definitely leave that in the comment section below. And then we'll just pick a random one, and the next week I'll brew a deck around that comment, or maybe I'll do another Bucko's House of Booty auction on my Discord for those of you that are patrons, and build you a deck based around a particular card. So again, I hope you enjoyed this video. Kevin with the Rogue Deck Builder. Thanks for watching.